church tower.
The women were expected to fly using only landmarks on the ground to guide them. They were unarmed and without radios.
I frightened myself out of my wits, coming face to face with one of the Cotswold Hills. Fortunately, I'd got enough power to actually put pressure on, go up over it.
Cloud meant death, or as good as. You had to be very lucky to fly into Cloud and get out of it alive.
This morning, there were 5 of us flying Spitfires. The weather was not good. I decided that I could cope. Dora Lang, my friend, decided she could cope. The other 3 decided that they wouldn't. We were both going to the same place. When I got to this place, I could hardly see the aerodrome. And as I landed, I was whistling down the runway, and to my horror, another Spitfire coming in the opposite direction, doing exactly the same as I was doing, rushing down the runway. And there we were, 2 Spitfires landed exactly the same time in the opposite directions. It was an absolute miracle that we didn't touch each other and didn't even see each other until we actually passed on the runway. That was very frightening afterwards, thinking about it. We tended to keep to the left side of the runway, so I was on my left and she was on her left, and that saved our lives.
If I ever started having nightmares that I was crashing my airplane or something, then I'd know that I'd been pressing on too much and frightening myself, I suppose.
But nightmare and reality were never very far apart. Mary Wilkins Ellis and her friend Dora Lang had survived one near miss. Dora wasn't so lucky when she was ferrying a twin-engine Mosquito with a female engineer.
She was about to land, and for some reason, the airplane suddenly shot up into the air and then fell down onto the runway, burst into flames. And that was the end of everything. So Dora was killed, and so was a pretty little engineer girl. Very sad.
There was something rather brutal about the way that deaths were reported in the ferry pools. The operations officer would simply erase the name on the blackboard that all the women would look at to know where they were supposed to be flying the next day.
I missed her terribly. She was a very nice person. And for 2 days, I was not allowed to fly. I didn't want to. But after that, one realized, well, there is a war on. We must get on with our jobs. And we did.
The most famous woman flyer of all was ultimately to become an ATA fatality. Amy Johnson, the inspiration for British women flyers, got lost in Cloud whilst ferrying a plane in 1941. She bailed out over the Thames estuary and was lost at sea. Nearly 1 in 10 of the women flyers were to lose their lives, making it one of the most dangerous jobs in the war.
Yes, quite a few of our friends were killed. Yes. But that was part of the game, really, wasn't it? You couldn't always get away with murder.
By 1942, Britain's position was still perilous, and ever more recruits were needed for the ATA. The United States had just entered the war and would now provide the largest contingent of foreign women flyers. Nancy Stratford travelled to England in May 1942, not knowing what to expect.
We got over to Liverpool, and the first night there was an air raid siren. I didn't know what to do, so I got under the bed. I realized it was a war zone, and that it was difficult, and it was going to be difficult, but I wanted to help.
The most difficult thing Roberta Laveau had to cope with was an English breakfast.
There were certain kippers. Do you know what kippers? The whole darn fish with its eye open, greasy. Oh dear, it was very hard to eat. But we did not want to offend the English.
Roberta needn't have worried about upsetting her hosts. The American who recruited her would soon be doing that. Jackie Cochran was a flamboyant American flyer, not known for her modesty.
Jackie Cochran had an extraordinary rags-to-riches story. Born an orphan, she picked her own name from the phone book, married a billionaire, became a millionaire in her own right with a chain of cosmetics stores all over the United States, which she serviced by air. She was a fanatical pilot, and she made it her mission to show the American flying establishment that women could fly and should fly in the war. And to that end, she recruited 25 women pilots, took them over to Britain, and got them places in the ATA.
She had a hard way of speaking, was intolerant, a lot of profanity. We were a little awe of her and kind of embarrassed by her.
Jackie Cochran came swanning around like Queen Bee in a Bentley and a fur coat. The Americans brought something different, I think, to ATA. They brought American informality and American, shall we say, difficulty with stuffy Britishness. They had a ball, and some of the Brits I don't think could cope with this.
At our headquarters, which was called White Waltham, I remember saying they look at us as if we were a bad smell.
One person in particular turned her nose up at the Americans.
Discursive. And she just didn't waste any time talking with us.
And she was really horrid to a lot of the young people when they came into ATA. I could have kicked her sometimes, she was so beastly, but she couldn't help it. She was just born like that, I think.
Cochran's newly arrived Americans were on a collision course with the British.
They might have thought that they would be welcomed with open arms and gratitude. They were instead read the rule book at a meeting in London when they finally got down from Liverpool, taken out to White Waltham and asked to strip. Because the doctor there, Arthur Barber, who turned out to have a predilection for 16mm adult films, insisted that all ATA recruits, male and female, strip for their medicals.
Jackie Cochran wasn't about to let the Brits get away with it.
When Jackie Cochran found out about this, she tore down from London to White Waltham and said, "Where is it written that my pilots have to be examined in the buff?" And because she was a pal of Roosevelt's, they backed down, and the American recruits had their medicals with their clothes on. But that's an example of the scant respect shown to these women who had taken their lives in their hands to come and fly for the ATA.
Jackie Cochran's abrasiveness upset her more stuffy British hosts. She never really settled in Britain. After a few months, she returned to the